Sunday night, just reflecting on the lessons from last week, and it's a repetition of the same things. Should you press the accelerator harder, so write a smarter goal or revisit your goals, dig deeper into your why, build your belief that it's possible, so all of those productivity hacks? Or do you need to release your brakes? Are you holding yourself back, or is something in your own mind holding you back? I think to set up a business or anything, find a girlfriend or whatever you want to achieve, you need to decide what it is. Is it you limiting yourself? Are there limiting beliefs in there? I.e., do you need to release your own brakes? Or are you ready to rumble and set a goal and become hyper-productive and in relentless pursuit of achieving that goal? For me personally, I've spent the last 15 years trying mainly to jam the accelerator down harder, when really the thing that I've needed to do this whole time, but I didn't know I needed to do it, was releasing my own brakes. And maybe I'll start to talk about that on this channel. I don't really want to go into it right now. It's a bit personal. But if it starts to, maybe this is a platform to help other guys who have maybe trodden a similar path to what I have and had to rebuild themselves. You know, we all go through storms in life, that's for sure. You know, my story isn't necessarily unique in any way. It's just how you respond to it. What else has gone on this week? Reflections. I started keeping a journal, which I've never done journaling because I've always just assumed that it's too time consuming. But what I've done is a very quick variation of just in the morning after I've done my mindfulness, a tiny bit of mobility work, like literally a 2 or 3 minute mobility routine to open up my hips and back and shoulders. And then I'll pray and read. I read scripture. And then I'll grab this journal and just scribble down. I've put 3G, or 3 things to be grateful for today. What would make today great? So it gets you to future pace and imagine having achieved your goal, which is a really powerful thing to do. And at the end of the day, you're kind of meant to pick it back up and ask, what did I learn from today? But I'm not doing that because it's kind of too clunky. It slows the process down. So what I do, or I'm not wanting to pick up that journal again at the end of the day. So what I do is I remember one thing that I learned from the previous day, and I just write it in that morning. You know, so I only pick it up in the morning. You're meant to do it morning and evening. And what I found is just that simple act of what did I learn, and I've spoken about this before. After like the 10th time that you've written down, for example, I shouldn't open YouTube after 10 p.m. because I get sucked into watching something, Joe Rogan or some podcast or whatever. After like the 10th time of writing that down, and it's the act of writing it down, and it's just makes it so obvious that you're repeating a mistake, you start to become more aware and change your behavior. So yeah, they're the big behaviors. I think if I were to talk to myself 10 years ago, I would say, hey, all the productivity stuff is great. Jamming the accelerator down is great, as long as the handbrake is not locked well and truly on. You know, are you ready for this? And I guess I'm really talking about your self-image. I spoke about this book, Psycho-Cybernetics, which is highly recommended by a lot of very successful people. How do you see yourself? If you see yourself, if there's like a lot of self-hatred there, you're not going to be able to achieve anything, because you see yourself as not worthy you will not want to honor yourself. Whereas if you see yourself as worthy, not arrogant, but you see yourself as worthy, you'll be happy to put your products or your services out there or fail forward. You know, it's massively, massively important to, if you find yourself being ultra critical every time you screw up, you make a mess of something, and even that language is not a good screw up. Every time that you have a learning lesson, a voice comes into your head, it might be worth tracking back, trying to think, where does that voice come from? Who is that in my head? Quite often normally it's a parent or a teacher or someone who had a real profound impact on you. And you want to get rid of that. Like, you want to question that. One way to do that, I've spoken about this technique, is to imagine you're speaking to your son or your best friend. And how would you talk to your best friend? Probably you wouldn't dream of speaking to them like you're speaking to yourself, if you're that way inclined, you know, heavily self-critical. One is Peter Attia, who had this technique given to him by a therapist. He was horribly self-critical. Peter Attia is like a longevity expert, ATTIA, he's a very smart guy. And the therapist said every time that you have that urge come up, he actually gave it a name, that voice, Bobby Knight he called it, I remember. But he said every time that urge comes up, I want you to take your voice, record out on your memo, voice memos on your iPhone, and record a message as if you were talking to your best friend. And it was, I don't know, I think he gave a sample. It was something like, hey, Robbie, you just made a mistake there, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world. In fact, it's a good thing because you learned it, you know, and so forth. You get the idea. And he said after 12 weeks of, I think it was 6 or 12 weeks of doing that, this Bobby Knight character in his head, who had just been maiming him for the last 30 years or 40 years longer, after 12 weeks of doing that voice memo thing, imagining talking to a best friend, he said that Bobby Knight just died. It went. He said he can barely really remember, without really trying hard to think back, he can barely remember what it used to say to him. And it used to dominate his mind. So yeah, they're the key learns. Do you need to release your brakes, get rid of critical thinking, fix a broken self-image? And there are things you can do for that. Gosh, this video would be too long if I start going into that. But you've got to have a healthy self-image. You've got to have a great level of self-esteem. And again, that's not being arrogant. That's fully accepting yourself and fully accepting others, and being kind to and honest with yourself when you're not, you know, treating yourself as if you're somebody worth looking after. You know, if you promise yourself you're going to do a bit of work and you really cared about yourself, you would at least make a start, you know, or chunk it down. So release the brakes, or press the accelerator, increase productivity, etc. And then the journaling, that's really helped me. It takes like 30 seconds to do it. I put 3G, or 3 things I'm grateful for. I put 3G and I have a notebook. And it can be anything. Like the other day it was like, had a great night's sleep. My ankle pain is gone because I'm trying a new form of treatment. A bit bizarre, but it's working. Whatever, 3G. What would make today great? So it future paces you and gets you to focus on 3 things that if you got them done, or 2, would make today great. And then learnings. You're meant to do that in the evening, but I just do that also in the morning. What did I learn from yesterday? So yeah, that's a check-in. And until you get this figured out, like release your brakes, even earning £1,000 a month there's a good chance it might be just near impossible for you. You know, you may just be good for having a job. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But if you're going to put yourself out there and build your own business, I'm becoming more and more convinced, and I've heard more and more people speak about this, that you've got to fix your stuff inside. You know, go back to whatever happened and fix it. And that may mean talking to someone, it may mean reading some great books. Anyway, that's 10 minutes. Have a great week.